Inspector General of Police orders mop-up of prohibited firearms ahead of Edo and Ondo governorship elections.
Ministry of Labour and Employment refutes allegation of complicity in human trafficking.
Lagos Ibadan Rail project attracts business interests along the axis.
300,000 tons, metric tons of cargo between Lagos and the Kano.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss deregistration of political parties, matters arising, plus the Graduate Summer 2020 Symposium.
Prior to the 2019 general elections last year, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, opened the floodgates for a whopping 91 political parties to partake in the electoral process.
I also recall that the political parties eventually became 92 with the late entrant of one of them, of course, that could not make the ballot as at when it was registered. I also, Kieran, recall that 73 of those political parties fielded presidential candidates for the general elections that took place last year.
Exactly, and of course the multiplicity of political parties for the general elections generated commendations and criticisms. Of course, while some Nigerians saw it as positive, some also criticized it, saying that, of course, the numbers are many and that it will affect the ballot paper, and for so many other reasons, knowing full well that most of those parties were unable to win a single election in local government area, in the states, and of course at the federal level.
All right. Now, the general elections, proved to be a logistic nightmare for INEC. Of course, we know why. There's so many of them, and it was not surprising, to many when in February that the electoral umpire announced the deregistration of 74 of those 91 political parties, leaving out 18 parties standing. Kieran.
Yeah, man, INEC relied on the fourth alteration of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, with a specific reference to Section 225, which empowered it to deregister a political party that fails to win at least 25% of the votes cast in one state of the Federation and in a presidential election, or 25% of the votes cast in one local government area of a state in a governorship election, among other conditions.
And INEC's action, however, triggered a series of litigations as a group of about 23 political parties challenged their deregistration in court with various legal applications. Now, the Court of Appeal here in Abuja, that's the Abuja division, ruling on July 29, in an appeal filed by one of the parties, the National Unity Party, UPN, affirmed the power of INEC to deregister political parties that failed to meet the constitutional threshold in Section 225.
But in a twist, the Court of Appeal, in another judgment, held that the deregistration of some 25 political parties is ultra-virus. The powers of INEC and ordered the Commission to reinstate those parties.
All right, so right now, INEC is torn between two judgments, seemingly conflicting, of the appellate court, and it has vowed to approach the apex court, which is of course the Supreme Court, for a final ruling on this very important matter.
Yeah, some of us who are not lawyers, are usually confused when such judgments, come up, right? So, I don't know. I thought that the alter ego in all of this should be the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Yeah. Anyway, why was there a need for a separate Court of Appeal ruling? Will the latest judgment affect upcoming elections? And will INEC be able to secure a Supreme Court ruling in good time?
Well, Kieran has said it all. Interestingly, both of us are not, neither of us is a lawyer. But Of course, I'm sure that our viewers will be looking forward to the perspectives that our guests will bring. That's as we take on the matter today, arising from the deregistration of parties on our program today. That's the topic we're looking at this morning. So I do expect quite a number of tweets coming, from all our viewers from different parts of the country and also outside the country. So it's on this note I'd like to welcome all of you once again to Good Morning Nigeria. Today, Monday, the first working day of the week, and we're broadcasting live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. I am Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak.
And I'm Kirian Umayo, joining Claire to welcome you to the program live from the nation's capital city of Abuja. Just to let you know that we'll be discussing a second topic today, and that borders on the Graduate Summer 2020 Symposium. In a moment, we'll be bringing you the morning news and also serve you other segments of the program in the course of the package. So let's bring in Nolin Abel Ame for the morning news. Hello, Nolin.
Hello, Kirian and Claire. Good morning to you. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the news. As part of preparations towards the forthcoming gubernatorial elections in Edo and Ondo states, as well as efforts by the police high command to curb the proliferation of prohibited firearms in the country, the Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, has ordered commissioners of police in the 36 states and FCT to immediately initiate appropriate actions to identify, isolate, disarm, arrest, and prosecute any individuals or groups in possession of prohibited firearms. Force Public Relations Officer Frank Mba, in a statement, says the directive has become necessary against the backdrop of the deliberate arming and movement of political thugs and other criminal elements across the country. In addition, the directive is targeted at addressing the proliferation and unlawful possession of prohibited firearms in the country, which is contrary to the provisions of Chapter F28 LFN 2004 of the Firearms Act. The IGP further directs commissioners of police to immediately convene an enlightenment meeting of all vigilante groups and quasi-security outfits spread across the country in order to ensure that their activities are in conformity with the extant laws guiding their establishment and operations. The Ministry of Labour and Employment has denied allegation of complicity in human trafficking, especially of Nigerian girls to other parts of the world. A statement by the Deputy Director, Press and Public Relations of the Ministry, Charles Akpan, says at no time did the federal government issue any moratorium against the issuance of recruiters' license to the placement of Nigerian citizens abroad in breach of the relevant provisions of the Labour Act Cap 1 L1 2004. The ministry therefore challenges anyone making the allegation to produce such moratorium if it exists. The ministry says it has put in place a labor migration desk to address the associated problems with the movement of skilled and low-skilled persons within and outside the country. The presidency urges the general public to ignore as a publicity stunt the widely circulated reports alleging that a former Speaker Umar Gali Naaba has been invited by the Department of State Service (DSS) over his alleged comments on President Buhari. A statement from Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity Garba Shehu indicates that findings have revealed that his invitation has nothing to do with the alleged irresponsible utterances by Umar Gali Naaba, which in any case did not catch the attention of the presidency or of any serious politician for that matter. The statement advises Naaba to distance the presidency from the situation he has found himself and sort himself out accordingly. Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed says the federal government has justified the rationale behind its borrowing from foreign countries. The minister stated this shortly after inspecting the Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge rail project.
The minister said the federal government has justified the rationale behind its borrowing from foreign countries. The minister stated this shortly after inspecting the Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge rail project. The minister stated this shortly after inspecting the Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge rail project. it appears, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, that COVID has come to stay. And government has to run. We have to deliver our promises to the people because that's why we're elected, and that we don't have time. If we just sit in our houses waiting for COVID to end, it may end 2023. So let's hope that by January this thing will be ready.
This administration of this series of inspections we are going to take along with you so that you can better enlighten Nigerians that there's nothing bad in borrowing, provided that borrowing is invested in infrastructure.
Meanwhile, business interests have started to spring up around several train stations along the Lagos-Ibadan-Abeokuta axis, which has now become choice locations of prospect. The people say they are eagerly awaiting the project's completion as they have begun to harness opportunities provided by the multi-billion-dollar investment.
If there's project like this, most of the youth will enjoy, they will benefit. Criminality and terrorism will stop in the country if there's project like this.
Without the project, some of us will have not been able to feed.
This government has tried a lot in terms of transportation and everything. Because within railway now, we are able to go anywhere we want to go.
The federal government has rolled out a new method of production, processing and export of sesame and hibiscus. Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Muhammad Sabona Nono, made this known while interacting with state government officials.
And the same thing in sesame seed production. We have taken over being #1 in sesame production, as well as hibiscus flower production. And we are working tirelessly to see that we boost also the production of groundnut in the state. Those are crops those crops we have comparative advantage on, and we are pushing very hard to produce them massively and to increase our competitive advantage in producing them.
Now to update on COVID-19 Nigeria, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control has confirmed 298 new cases of COVID-19 across 16 states, bringing Nigeria's case load to 49,068. The breakdown of the 298 new cases revealed that Plateau State tops the daily chart with 108 cases, followed by Kaduna with 49, while Lagos has 47 new cases. Ogun recorded 18 new cases, Osun 17, FCT 15, Ondo 14, Edo 8, Oyo 6, Akwa Ibom and Cross River 4 cases each, Borno 3, Ekiti 2, while Bauchi, Kano and River States have 1 case each. Lagos State now has a total of 16,503 confirmed cases, followed by FCT with 4,729, while Oyo is third with 2,958 confirmed cases. Out of Nigeria's total of 49,068 COVID-19 cases, 36,497 recovered cases have been discharged, while the death toll is now 975. That's the morning news. The program continues with Claire and Kingsley after this break. I am Nolin Ebel Ame.
We visit Mrs. Johnson live in Lagos. Helen Paul. Hello, madam. Would you like to join us on this mission?
Yes, but how?
Just one question for you. How do you keep your toilet clean?
I use regular detergent and bleach for washing and removing yellow stains. I have been using it for years.
Oh, madam. The regular detergents and bleach are used for washing clothes. To clean your toilet properly, you need Harpic 10X. It is specially made for stains in the toilet. Harpic Thick formula settles on stains and gives 10 times better cleaning compared to regular detergents and bleach.
Wow! Now I'm convinced, Helen Paul.
Really?
Yeah!
Now that she's part of the mission, the next house is yours.
Introducing the new and tasty Peak Yogurt. The nourishment to be you, do you, and go for you. Peak Yogurt comes in orange, strawberry, and plain sweetened flavour. All available in nearby stores.
Everyone has always been faced with a moral question between what is right and what is wrong. Yet not everyone is ready to do the right thing. This is where we come in. We are Jais Bank, committed to making a difference by doing the right thing even if we stand alone. A place where transparency is an attitude and trust is a culture. A place where profit is shared and losses borne together. At Jais Bank, we support you to shape a better tomorrow, a partnership to birth your dreams. Jais Bank, for a better life.
All right, welcome back. This is Good Morning Nigeria, and thank you for staying with us and joining us if it's your first time. Coming up next on the program is our newspaper review.
Our reviewer, Bayo Atoyebi, is here this morning. Bayo, it's good to see you.
Thank you.
I hope you had a great weekend.
Yes, a very restful one.
Yes, you're welcome.
Good morning,
Thank
Claire.
you for always getting up early.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Kire.
Yeah.
Get on with it.
I thought you wanted to start. All right. Okay, let's begin with the Nigerian passport, Nigerian pilot. Nigerian pilot newspaper. It says former Speaker Galinaba appears before DSS today. That's on page 9. Then COVID-19 states to get $2.5 million World Bank grant if they give tax relief. That's on page 8. The lead story on the pilot this morning, violent crimes with 4 riders. IGP orders mop up of illegal arms nationwide. Commands clamp down on persons carrying arms illegally. Regrets heightened tension in Edo ahead of Guba election. Direct CPs, that's commissioners of police nationwide, to convene meeting of vigilante groups. And now below the photo story, of course, where you can see the Minister of Transportation, Chibika Amici, and of course the Minister of Information and Culture, of course with some coach of twins behind them, is the minister. They are actually inspecting some rail project in Omi Adio in Ibadan area. Okay, below that we have some other headlines. Now, 296 more Nigerians arrive Abuja from UK. That's on page 6. Serap to Buhari. Lai Mohammed, MBC should withdraw illegal broadcasting code. That's on page 9. Police rescue 35-year-old detained by father for 15 years in Kano. That's striking. That's on page 9. Insecurity. That's the kicker. Buhari urged to ensure safety of waterways Gulf of Guinea. That's on page 5. All right, that's about it. But this last one. That's at the bottom. Reps to probe illegalities in insurance sector. Summon NNPC, CBN, AMCON. The story is on page 12 of the Nigerian pilot. Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at The Nation. And this paper has, as its lead story, says governors, lawmakers, others share 774,000 jobs. That's what it says. And it goes on to give a breakdown of the allocations. If you read it, it's there. It says ministers, religious institutions, transport workers, women's societies, CSOs get slots. October takeoff on course. And moving away from that story, CBN's stress test clears banks. And just so you know, the paper says banks are strong enough to withstand the COVID-19 pandemic impact. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN stress test has revealed. So pick up that paper and check out the details. It's on page 5. And NAF deploys 32 special forces in southern Kaduna. That story has been trending. The details of that, it's on page 8. Okay, let me take this one. The trending story at the foot of the paper, wet season farming. NISAL to lift 44,670 farmers. And of course, there are COVID-19 stories. But let's go a little just above the nameplate now. Presidency to Naaba, leave Buhari out of your issue. You can read up the details of that on page 5. Now, Borno to resettle 1.8 million IDPs in 23 councils. And it says 2.5 million people displaced. You can read up that on page 42. Buhari, Lawan, Okowa, greet Babangida. That's ex-president as he turns 79. And of course, there is the story on Edo and Undo 2020 elections right there on the front page of the paper. Okay, I forgot to mention the picture story, which is very, very important for us. The picture story there is some of the 296 evacuees arriving at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, from Gatwick Airport, London. That's via Air Peace at the weekend. Bayo, which is your take?
Thank you. Let's start with the initiative by the Nigerian Air Force. You know, Southern Kaduna has been in the news most recently, and the Nigerian Air Force, through the auspices of the Air Officer Commanding Training Command Kaduna, has deployed what they describe as 32 special force to Southern Kaduna. This is part of the the Air Force contribution towards the Operation Thunder Strike. The Operation Thunder Strike is the initiative of the Air Force to complement the war against banditry within the Northwest region. Where with this initiative, the Air Force says they are also going to embark on what they describe as civil-military relations, entailing deploying of their medical personnel into that area. You will recall that about a week ago, some military forces apprehended about 8 militants that were said to be responsible for invading one portion of southern Kaduna, where about 10 persons were killed. They are in the process of investigating and drilling to get to the root causes of all the. But then the complementary effort by the Air Force, it is hoped, will support the ground troops, and they will be able to meet all these crises in the board. Exit students who are supposed to sit for the West African Secondary School Certificate Examination are due to start today. Reports from the papers indicate that many of the schools have fulfilled the guidelines provided by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. This includes social distancing in the classroom and the hostels. But most importantly, in the examination halls, the West African Examination Council says it has provided personal protective equipment for their supervisors and invigilators. But some parents are already complaining. They say that some schools are making it mandatory for them to provide 3 face masks, tissue paper, sanitary towels, sanitary and face towels for their pupils. Some, apart from school fees of about 25,000, which is being paid in private schools in Katsina State, they make it mandatory for pupils to pay 3,000 COVID-19 fees. And teachers too are also putting in a voice. They say yes, in spite of the fact that there's been pressure on them to put in more work, nothing has been done about their remuneration. But all said and done, West Africa Examination Council has warned that students should be very careful about examination malpractices because they will not have any of it. The area of COVID-19, we had 278 cases yesterday, and this was in 16 states. Unfortunately, we lost 1 Nigerian. So far, the total we have had is 49,068 cases. Fatalities have now reached 975. Worldwide, 21,026,758 is the number of cases, while the death toll is 755,786. President Donald Trump lost his brother, Robert Trump. He was age 71. The president had visited him in the hospital and he said the brother was having a hard time, but it's not been disclosed the cause of his death. Meanwhile, over the weekend, churches opened across most of the states. You recall that this is coming sequel to after 5 months when churches were closed as a result of COVID-19. Again, protocols are strictly observed, and the church revelers were very happy. And one reverend said that, well, in the presence of God, those who function always come there with joy, and they are very, very happy to come back to churches. But they are very strict. You have to maintain and observe the COVID-19. In Ogun State, one church had 3 services, and after each service, they made sure that the premises was fumigated before the next one. So apparently, they are sticking to the rules.
Even some churches in Abuja here adhere to the COVID-19 protocol. They have no choice, right? Because in a congregation, if anybody has the coronavirus, to be easily spread to the entire church itself. So they have to be very careful. In my church, where I worship, it was observed. And again, we had 3 services, simultaneously, right? 2 persons in one long chair, right? Of course, with your face mask, right? And before you enter the church, you have to get yourself sanitize your hands and all that. You wash your hand, before. And so if every church, adheres to that, then, of course, we are making progress with respect to the reopening of churches. Of course, for 5 months now, I mean, people have not gathered to pray together. What we call a corporate worship, right? It did not take place in Nigeria. And Nigeria, of course, is a very religious country. Both Christians and Muslims in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, we are one of the nations that attend, most of the pilgrimages across the globe. We are known for that. And I mean, they're happy. People are happy, really, coming back again.
Yes, to emphasize the issue of observing the protocols. If you look at the figures we have now in Nigeria, those who brought the COVID-19 from abroad, they constitute 2%. Those who transmitted by way of contact is about 34%. But there's 74% that is unaccounted for. And that is the danger that cannot be explained. What is responsible for the community transmission? That is why they are very strict, and we all have to be very responsible about it.
But quickly, the issue of the banks, banks, stress test, CBN clearing bank stress test. That should be very, very interesting. And I'd just like to say that inside the page, it says that this clearance contradicts Fitch's report indicating that the cash reserve ratio policy, which we are implementing, may affect banks' performance with regards to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, the CRR is the periodic thing that quarter in, quarter out, the central bank reviews to ensure that the monetary policy complements the initiatives to support the economy. So it's not only Nigeria. Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, they are all worried about the CRR rate, especially the impact it will have on the economy. And talking about Ghana, Nigerian traders in Ghana are at it again. They are having their shops shut. And the Ghanaian government, when the last time the President Muhammadu Buhari and President Nana Akufo-Addo intervened, and ECOWAS also intervened, they allowed them to open, but they asked them to register. Now you register, they have registered, but you have to pay $1 million as money deposit.
$1 million US dollars?
US dollars. So many of them are not able to meet that. And so they have now commenced shutting of the shop. And so Nigerian traders are crying out that Nigerian traders' life matters. That is the latest campaign coming from Ghana.
And these are not big-time shops, right? So how could a shop, pay $1 million US dollars as a registration fee?
They have what they call a Ghana Union Trading something. You have to be a Ghanaian to have a business premises to trade. Where you are not a Ghanaian, the law requires that in your business, if for instance you are running a taxi, you must have a number of fleets and many of those drivers must be Ghanaians. If you have a business, 25% of your employees must be Ghanaians. The regulations are very, very strict.
But the ECOWAS protocol has rules, for those wishing to live and do business, within ECOWAS nations. It is clear. The provisions are clear. Anyway, Bayo, I'm told we have to sign you off for now.
Thank you.
So we hope we'll see you again tomorrow by the grace of God. Thank you.
All right.
All right. And you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll be right back after this break.
NTA TV College Jos, an affiliate of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, is currently admitting students for its ordinary diploma programs in television journalism, television production, and television engineering. Interested candidates are advised to obtain relevant information concerning eligibility at our website at www.ntatvc.edu.ng or marketing department of any NTA station nationwide. For further information, contact Assistant Director, Marketing, NTA TV College Jos on 0803-314-4383 or the Academic Office of the College on 0806-980-9807. Announcer, Registrar.
Close Up Deep Action with antibacterial formula and deep cleaning gel keeps your teeth clean and protected. Close Up Deep Action. Enjoy long-lasting fresh breath and more.
For over 70 years, we've practiced healthy hygiene habits together. The world needs us to keep our fight going against germs. So let's wash our hands for 20 seconds regularly. Dettol. Protect what's worth fighting for.
She cries. She cries in anguish and in pain. She bears the scourge of her grief. She toils in vain for justice and succumbs to silence. He gloats over his malady. Like a beast, he pounces with no remorse. Her cry means nothing. Her pain feeds her shame. Like an orphan, she's left to grieve in solitude. But no more will she cry in vain. Her adversaries will henceforth bear the brunt of their cruelty. Rape is evil. Rape is a plague, a pandemic of monumental consequences. We must unite and kick it out of our society.
Connect with NTA and stand against rape and rapists. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Yeah, we thank you for staying with us up to this moment on Good Morning Nigeria. Our conversation this morning is on deregistration of political parties, matters arising. But before we begin the conversation, here is a background report put together by our correspondent, Abdulsalam Jibril.
In February 2020, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, deregistered 74 political parties for failing to meet constitutional requirements that determine the continuous existence of political parties in the country. One of the constitutional requirements cited by INEC is failure by the affected political parties to win at least 25% of vote cast in one state of the Federation during the presidential election. The political parties, individually and in groups, however, approached the courts to challenge the action of INEC, but the Federal High Court upheld INEC's powers to deregister them. The political parties appealed the judgment, and on one hand, the Court of Appeal Abuja Division, in an appeal filed by the National Unity Party (NUP), affirmed in July this year the power of INEC to deregister political parties that fail to meet the constitutional threshold in Section 225. But in a latest judgment by the Court of Appeal in a suit brought by the deregistered political parties, the court held that the deregistration by INEC was illegal as due process was not followed. This has generated some reactions.
Nigerians are awaiting the final resolution of the issues raised in the two conflicting judgments. As a stakeholder and a co-stakeholder for that matter, IPAC will abide by the decision of the Apex Court.
We are happy that we are running a democracy. And like we said, we are not against the federal government. We are not against INEC. We are just trying to put the constitution in a proper perspective.
INEC, on its part, has decided to appeal the latest judgment at the Supreme Court. It has also declared that the registered political parties would not participate in both upcoming Edo and Ondo governorship elections. Guests on Good Morning Nigeria would give their perspectives to the issues shortly.
All right, let's get on with our conversation. Let me quickly introduce all our guests. They're all here in our Abuja studios. First, I'd like to welcome Obo Efanga. He's INEC's resident electoral commissioner for Rivers State. I'd like to thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Mazi Afamusigwe is also with us. He's former secretary, Nigeria Bar Association. Of course, he's right here with us in our Abuja studio. Mazi Afamusigwe, thank you, and good to see you again.
You too, thanks for inviting me.
All right, we equally have here Dr. Yunusa Tanko, National Chairman and the 2019 presidential candidate of the National Conscience Party, which is one of the 74 deregistered political parties. It's good to see you.
Thank you very much for having me, Karen.
All right, let me also welcome Ademola Babatunde, who is the National Chairman, Nigeria Community Movement Party, also one of the 74 deregistered parties. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, Claire.
Okay, let me start with the former national chairman and the 29 presidential candidate, Dr. Yunusa Tanko. What's your evaluation of what has just happened, the latest decision by the courts?
I must say, quite frankly, coming from the judgment that I've seen, the NUP, the Hope Democratic Party, and other judgments that have passed, I thought we are losing hope. But already at the back of my mind, I had it that it's a marathon race. I know that this situation will not end up anywhere other than the Supreme Court because of past experience that we had. I remember very well the NCP has been in the vanguard of challenging issues of this nature before it even happened. And so we ended up in the Supreme Court almost one time and then the appeal court at the same time. So when the judgment came, actually it came as a surprise to me, but a pleasant one at the same time.
But what was it? Why did you come as? Why was it surprising to you?
You see, the politics in Nigeria has gone unbelievably skewed to a point that you will even doubt yourself, not even police, even INEC or the judiciary. Here we are, we have a situation at the beginning that clearly indicates that preempting INEC action, which is a normal thing that INEC does after general elections. They will always come to your office to sample whether you are existing after the election and check all the constitutional provision and then make pronouncement afterwards. That has been the norms in INEC. So before that happened, we have already gone to court, thinking that there may be such a situation happening. And then it did happen, but what really alerted me, because we had a kind of a pronouncement by the court, giving on an interlocutory injunction, stopping that action taken. So that for me rests the case ab initio. And you remember here, right in this studio, I said that INEC was a little bit hasty in taking its decision as regard to the legislation. I sympathize with INEC. The case in which INEC has always been championing and the general public is that too many political parties, it costs taxpayers money. Who said to Nigerians that democracy is cheap? It's not. It's not. But, of course, it replicates the interests of the generality of the populace. And that one brings peace. So, therefore, in that case, since there was that particular interlocutory injunction, I expected that that particular judgment should have been followed to the latter. But surprisingly, Justice Sikeri, again, not taking the decision quickly, now went ahead and gave a pronouncement in support of INEC registration. But I must commend the doggedness of the President of the Court of Appeal, Right Honorable Justice Monica Dogban Memsen. What she held was very, very clear. The respect to the court order is not as if nobody is challenging INEC power to the registered political party in any way, but the process of respect to the court of law and its pronouncement is what she held, and it must be respected. That way, we have respect for the processes of how we take care of things. If that has been done in Nigeria for a very long time, most of the problems that we are having in this country wouldn't have taken place. And in fact, we wouldn't have always been ending up at the court of law before we can decide who rules us in this country.
Let's also get the view of, Demola Babatunde, who is the National Chairman, Nigeria Community Movement Party, NCMP. What's your own reaction? I'm just asking the obvious question.
Yeah. Thank you very much. First of all, I just want to appreciate the Court of Appeal for taking that stance, because looking at the struggle from the beginning, you will discover that INEC as a commission had not led to expectation of not only the political parties, but also Nigerians. As an institution that is that derives its own right from the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we should understand that the rule of law should be respected at every point in time. We went to court before the registration occurred. INEC didn't follow due process, and I read through the judgment of the Court of Appeal. I saw the stance of the honorable justices that were on that sitting before the honorable, the president of the Court of Appeal pronounced that judgment. And if you look at the writings of the appeal court's statement of that order, you will discover that appeal court is trying to say that INEC, you have the power to deregister political party. Fine, it's enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended. But yet, there are due processes, there are procedures that you ought to have followed. You can't deregister political parties without telling them where they have heard and what they have done that warranted that decision. So for the Court of Appeal to take such decision at this current time...
Do you have to be told? It's clear. I mean, the rules and requirements and procedures are, explicitly clear in both the Constitution and the Electoral Act. Does INEC have to come to your doorstep, your party, and say, see, this is where you have flouted the rules?
INEC came to the offices of political party some times ago for an analytical verification exercise. And these political parties, usually when INEC comes like that, there is going to be reports back to political parties. Political parties is not a secondary school association. It's an association that has transformed into a political system where Nigerians are involved. If you are taking a stance to deregister political parties, it's not supposed to just be on the media. You never contacted any political parties. 2 weeks after the deregistration of the media, you are now issuing letter to political parties that they are no longer existing. It's appalling. It's sad to see such decisions being taken.
One thing is certain here, that both of you who are members of registered political parties agree that INEC has the power to deregister a party, and of course there are stipulations on why, on how they don't do it. But you are talking about the process. There was no due process, and you are likening it to what you are thinking that the decision of the appeal court, is quite in line with what the law says.
Yes.
Right. But again, if INEC has the power to deregister a party, and of course has seen that those parties have fallen short of what's the requirements that the Claire talked about, and now you are talking about the process, does it now mean that INEC, the powers of INEC is no longer, should not be respected? And that's why I want to bring in Mazda Famosigo here before we talk to the INEC person here, who is the former secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association. Now, INEC has already described the judgments as conflicting judgment, and it's going to the apex court, to of course get what of course they would like to prefer as the right decision. All right. So, what is your take in the whole saga? INEC having the power to register parties, then a high court giving a judgment, and again appeal court now overruled that and gave another judgment, and all that. So, what's your take?
I think there's no conflict here. Now, we have to understand that the fact that INEC has the constitutional powers under Section 225 of the 1999 Fourth Alteration does not mean that INEC may do as it pleases. Now, we need to all read the later judgment of the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal was very explicit in that judgment. It said that there are distinguishing features in the two cases. It said in the latter case that the political parties had approached the court for an order restraining INEC from deregistering them. That INEC, in violation of the pendency of that suit, went ahead to deregister the political parties. Then the Court of Appeal talked about due process, the right to fair hearing. Now, the fact that INEC has grounds on which a political party could be registered does not mean that it can willy-nilly do that. It simply means that INEC must also, in the exercise of these powers, accord the persons to be affected, in this case political parties, the right to fair hearing. And that's why the court said that the INEC did not follow due process. Now, in similar issues relating to land matters, the Apex Court, as in the case of offshore and foreign finance, stated it very clearly that the fact that you have the right to revoke a person's right of occupancy or take an action adversely affecting the person's right means that the person must be given an opportunity to be heard before such a decision is taken. So in this case, the Court of Appeal simply upheld the political party's right to be heard before such a decision can be taken. Indeed, it was interesting hearing the immediate past speaker say that the political parties were not contacted, that they simply read in the news that their certificates had been withdrawn. That is what the judgment of the Court of Appeal deprecated. It simply said INEC ought not to have taken this action while a case was pending in court, and most importantly, without according the political parties the right to be heard. Now, the court referred to the earlier judgment and distinguished it in the later decision to show that there was a difference. And the court will decide the case based on the issues presented for the court to determine. And to that extent, the judgments are not in conflict. The court in both cases recognize INEC's power to register political parties. It is an issue of due process of law, respecting the judicial process, which the court had also deprecated the conduct of the same INEC in the case of P2B and INEC, where P2B was challenging the power of INEC to conduct election in Anambra State at a time he said his tenure had not elapsed, and INEC went ahead to conduct election. And the Supreme Court noted that INEC ought to have waited for the outcome of that judicial process before taking action. That's what we are saying here. So much public funds is wasted when a public institution cannot await the outcome of a case and rush to take decisions, or will not give parties that are to be adversely affected an opportunity to be heard. We cannot act as if laws are meant for us to use as we please. That is what the court is simply saying. INEC observe the procedure. Give them a right. You say they did not get 25% of the vote. Tell them the reason. Afford them an opportunity to challenge your decision or not, or your ground for wishing to proceed to register them. You can't just wake up and register them. That's my take. There's no conflict in both decisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Many Nigerians, would also think that if INEC, has the power to register a party, there wouldn't have been any reason, for the registered parties to go to court seeking for an injunction or whatever, because already the power has been given to INEC to do that. And perhaps INEC must have done their research to determine whether these parties have met the prerequisite for a party in Nigeria. Remember that, look, we had 91 parties or 92 parties last election. That was something Nigerians describe as ridiculous, because of course it affected even the ballot paper and what have you. The entire process becomes so clumsy because of the number of parties. So let's bring in INEC now, to see where their take is. What's your take on all of this? You have been accused of, being in a hurry to register parties without allowing them to, to be heard at the law court.
Maybe I should, sorry, Kyrian. What is INEC's reading, of the judgment? Is INEC looking at it from as a judgment against your constitutional, mandate to register parties, or are you looking at it as a judgment, for not following the due process, the rule of law? How are you reading it?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start by reacting to what my brother Tanko said, and I agree with him totally. He admitted that the outcome of the Court of Appeal decision came as a surprise. And like we say in football, it was a goal scored against the run of play. We have had other decisions where the same Court of Appeal said that INEC was right to have deregistered some political parties before this one came, and the outcome was surprising to us. And what we find is that we have two different judgments of the Court of Appeal saying different things. The first one said we had the powers and we were right to deregister those political parties. The second one is saying the contrary. And the natural thing to do is to seek the interpretation or the final judgment of the Supreme Court. What INEC always tells us is, tells the public is that as an institution created by law and by the Constitution, we are bound by the laws of the land. And the laws of the land includes pronouncements of the court. But I think that there are some facts that we need to bring to the fore on this. The issue, the reasons given by the Court of Appeal in this second case, in this last case, in saying that we should not have deregistered those political parties, were not canvassed for at any time in the lower court, even at the appeal. And
it was not part of the prayers
it wasn't.
of the political parties?
No, it wasn't. And so it was surprising. That's why it was also surprising even to the political parties. Now, the point is, everybody agrees that the Constitution gives INEC the powers to deregister political parties. What the Court of Appeal is saying is that in doing that we couldn't have acted on our own. And I'm wondering if that meant that we needed to go to a court to get an order
to vacate an existing application by people who felt that their rights, have been infringed upon.
No.
You needed to vacate that.
No, there was nothing to vacate. At the lower court, there was nothing to vacate. There was nothing to vacate because there was an interlocutory order, and such orders is subject to the actual hearing of the case. And the case was now heard, and the judge at the High Court gave a ruling, gave a judgment to the advantage of INEC, that INEC had the powers to deregister the political parties, and we were right to deregister those political parties. So at the time we were in court, there was no order that stopped us from. What they are saying is that merely because the matter was in court, we should fold our hands and not do what we are constitutionally allowed to do. So I think that that's a bit strange, and we'll wait for the Supreme Court to decide on this. And whatever decision the Supreme Court gives, then INEC will implement that. But the point also needs to be made. Let's even look at the philosophy behind the whole idea of registration and deregistration of political parties. We've admitted, all who have spoken on this so far, have admitted that having so many political parties in a political environment as ours is so unwieldy, even not only for the election management body, but also even to the voters, that people are confused as to what, if you ask a lot of voters now to list political parties, if they are going to vote, it can be quite confusing. It's just a few of them that they can remember. And the Constitution is even clear as to what will make a political party to continue to remain as a political party, winning in election or certain number of votes or percentage of votes. And when they said that we did not involve the political parties, that's not true. One of the speakers here has said that INEC visited the political parties ahead of that time to do a verification. At the end of the verification, INEC now took the decision that the following political parties have not met the standard to remain as political parties. And when you say that some of the reasons for this, some of the qualifications that they did not meet are clear. So did you win a seat in any election in Nigeria, whether the ones conducted by INEC or the ones conducted by the state independent electoral commissions? It is a clear case. It's either you won or you did not win. And none of these political parties has shown that they won.
Sorry, let me just hold you. We will get to, the compliance or the meeting of the requirements by the political parties. You raised an issue in your earlier comments about the prayers, that the political parties, made, and that the latest judgment, did not rule on the prayers that they had asked for. So I'd like to ask Dr. Yunusa Tanko, what were your prayers at the initial?
They were quite clear. They were quite clear. Our prayers were quite clear. We made those particular prayers, because an honorable president of the Court of Appeal wouldn't have just given us a free gift without us asking for it. The question the prayers that we asked for were very clear, that INEC should allow the political party to complete the process. There was a process that is not completed. When you talk about winning elections, there were local government elections that were not concluded. And I've made that point here, right here. But the INEC made a position that they use the FCT elections, local government elections, as a prerequisite to concluding the elections of local government election, and that's not obtainable. It's not acceptable. Because there are local government elections that we could have won elections. But those particular elections have not been held. And yet we are going to pass a judgment on us as regard to deregistering the political parties. No. So, in fact, to say the truth, with some of the facts on the ground is that I'm sure even INEC herself was quite not pleased with the fact that when we took this case to court, long before the elections, there was no representation by INEC at the court.
Okay, let me just please, could you switch off your phone, please? Sorry. Let's bring in Mazi Afam. Mazi, I'm wondering, if you listen to INEC, is it possible for a court of competent jurisdiction to, give judgment on prayers not sought?
As we say, a court is not a Father Christmas. So I'm surprised at that statement. And then I'm also further surprised that the representative or the resident electoral commissioner said that INEC, being aware that a case was pending in court, could not fold its arms. And that goes to the substance of the Court of Appeal judgment. The Court of Appeal said, as long as your power to deregister in this circumstance is being challenged, you ought to await the outcome of the case. And INEC, thinking that it should not await the outcome or not fold its arms, could be properly described as executive recklessness. What would INEC have lost if it had patiently waited for the outcome of the judicial process? What would INEC have lost if it had sent the political parties the reasons for why it seeks to take action, thereby giving them an opportunity to either agree with it or disagree with it? That is the essence of this case. Failure to follow rule of law, due process. We're always in a hurry, and we end up wasting so much precious time, wasting public funds, and repeating what we could have done properly and got it right the first time. And even the political parties are challenging that there are several elections. Why shouldn't INEC have also heard their own side of the story? Visiting their offices for a verification exercise may be with respect to their compliance with other aspects of the Constitution, not as to Section 225, which will give rise to the power to register political parties. We must, in Nigeria, learn to respect judicial processes, learn not to be emotional. The philosophy behind the power to register political parties is not what we are talking about here. We are talking about the correctness of a procedure followed in taking particular decisions. It doesn't matter whether we should have 100 political parties, 1,000. The Constitution has given people the right to form associations, to assemble and to canvass for political views. If there are 1,000 political parties, yes, there may be logistic problems, but it's the constitutional right of individuals to form political associations where they meet the criteria for so doing. Rushing to scuttle that right because we feel that the numbers are too many is the problem we have here. Is why we have this litigation, which will also take us to the Supreme Court and put unnecessary burden on the court, which already has too many cases. If matters can be solved administratively by following the laid-down procedure, affording persons who will be adversely affected by such decisions an opportunity to be heard, such that the ability to complain at the outcome of the process will be greatly minimized, we will not be in this situation.
Aren't we postponing the evil day, given that all the parties do acknowledge INEC's power to deregister, whereby they have failed to comply with, any of the provisions of the Constitution as provided in 225. So aren't we just postponing the evil day?
suggesting that because INEC has the power to do so, they should do so at their whims and caprices. It's like saying because the society can impose death sentence in armed robbery cases, the society should, when a person is alleged to have been caught in armed robbery, proceed to execute the person without giving the person a right to be heard or without exhausting the rights of appeal. And that is what gives right to what we call vigilante justice. And that should not be an aspect of democracy or any arm of government. The fact that you know you have power to do it or that you may be right in a circumstance does not mean you should not follow the process. You should not allow the other man to do it. In many cases, people are caught in the act of stealing and yet they are taken to the court and a charge is framed against them and they are still asked, are you guilty or not guilty? So that there be a judicial pronouncement as to their guilt. We should not, because we have powers to do something, think we can proceed whimsically, arbitrarily to do so. That is the essence of democracy. That is the essence of constitutionalism, constitutional democracy. The right to be heard is sacrosanct. And no matter how guilty you feel the person is, you must afford that person an opportunity to be heard so that the process cannot by any means be faulted. Any mistake in following this procedure renders the whole decision null and void. And that will be a total waste of everybody's time.
Well, thank you so much, Afam Osigwe. That's clearly explained by you. But we want to also hear from the INEC person here who originally said that, look, that the appeal court, took up a judgment, that prayers that were not sought. And, of course, you are saying that there's nothing like that, that the court was at the right course. Now, but the issue now is, there are some political parties who are not in court, who have been deregistered, assuming the Supreme Court, affirms the decision of the appeal court. What would be the position of such parties that are not part of the suit at the moment?
Well, it would depend on what the pronouncement of the Supreme Court is. It has to be clear what it is, and we will act based on that. Like we keep saying, INEC respects the rule of law, and we do everything to ensure that we respect that. And we act on every court order and judgment given to us. Let me state the issue about not following the due process. We were in the court. The High Court ruled that we were right in what we did. The same High Court that the Court of Appeal now says we ought to have waited for them to pronounce. But even when we announced the delisting, the deregistration of those political parties, while the subject matter was still in court, that same court that we were before agreed with us at the end of it by giving judgment that we were right to deregister the political parties. And like I said, the political parties, when they appealed, that wasn't the basis of the appeal. The basis of the appeal was still whether we had the powers to deregister them. And they even raised issues about the quality of the election and the issue about the fact that some states have still not had the local government elections. And the court said we could not wait indefinitely until all this. So the question would be, at what time would we say that all the possible elections in the country have been conducted? Some of these political parties have been there for more than 5 years. And states have conducted local government elections even before the general elections conducted by INEC last year. They did not win any of those seats. So it's not about that, otherwise we will wait indefinitely. It would mean that there is no way that we can apply the provisions of the Constitution, because at any given time, there's no specific time that states are meant to conduct elections. There are states that have not conducted elections, local government elections, in the past 10 years. So if we now want to take a decision on whether the political parties are qualified to continue as political parties, and one state that has not conducted election in the last 10 years, and somebody says, well, this state has not conducted election, maybe if the election is conducted there, we could win.
At what period did INEC take this decision? Is it before the court gave its ruling on the interlocutory injunction that the political parties sought? At what point did INEC take that decision?
Well,
was it before or after?
He had mentioned it that they were suspecting that normally after the general elections, INEC will review all that has happened and take decisions to deregister those political parties that did not win the required number of votes or seats. And so they went to court. But the matter never came up until, for substantive hearing, until sometime this year. And INEC took the decision to deregister the political parties, I think, on the 5th of February. 5th of February. And the judgment of the court came after then. And the court agreed with us that we were right to deregister the political parties.
Well, the point is, before you deregister the political parties, were you aware that there is a suit, seeking to, of course, ascertain whether you are right? Yes, you have right to go ahead with the registration. If you were aware of it, why didn't you wait for the judgment then? That's what Afamosigo was talking about.
But we were in court. And like I said, even assuming that we failed to wait until the judgment, but even while after we deregistered the political parties, the matter was still going on. At no point did the court say we were wrong in doing that, and the final judgment of that court said we were right in doing it.
Because, Claire, my worry is this. The High Court said you are right in what you did.
Yes.
And then, of course, in between, the registered political parties went to court,
yes,
right, challenging the ruling of the High Court, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. And then you went ahead to register them.
No. We deregistered them before the High Court ruled that we were right to deregister them.
Okay.
Yes, that's what happened.
Okay, let's bring Kiran. Let me bring Afam. Before we bring in Babatunde Ademola to respond to some questions. Afam, I'm a bit confused, really. Might there be some confusion arising from judicial judgments? Because if we're having two, conflicting judgments from court of equal competence, equal jurisdiction, equal powers, is that not the source of all this controversy we are getting?
Not at all. Now, let me reiterate that the Court of Appeal, in its letter judgment, distinguished the two sets of cases. It said that in the latter case, that the political parties were already in court challenging INEC's power to deregister them, and that in flagrant disregard of the pending judicial process, INEC went ahead to deregister them. And the resident electoral commissioner just confirmed that when he says the matter was in court, but there was no judgment, and they went ahead to deregister. And he tries to justify their action by saying that at the end of the day, that the Court of Federal High Court upheld their power to deregister. The Court of Appeal is saying here, yes, you have power to deregister, but you ought not to have taken that action when the political parties have gone to court to challenge your planned action to deregister them. You ought to have waited for this outcome. That is what we are saying here. You are aware the matter is in court. You are a party to that suit. Ought you not to have waited for that matter to be disposed of before proceeding one way or the other? And the second limb of the judgment is about failure to follow in loop, assuming there was no court action. Did you accord them the right to fair hearing? No, you did not. And for failure to accord them the right to be heard before taking this action, your action in the registry then became null and void. We must look at the two planks of the judgment. INEC thinking that it is not bound to await the outcome of a pending litigation before acting on the same subject matter, and the INEC's failure to afford the parties an opportunity to be heard. These are the two salient issues involved here.
Sean Clare talks about here is also quite understandable to me, because as the INEC personnel said earlier on, that they were in court and there was a judgment of the High Court in their favor. That's number one. Meanwhile, he said that the political parties were challenging the INEC's powers that has been conferred on INEC by the Constitution. So, for me as an ordinary Nigerian, what are they challenging? Already INEC has the powers, right, to do that, and you are challenging such powers. Is it not one of these, litigations that, stay in court for longer than necessary and what have you? Because after all said and done, the Constitution, of course, is the the highest, yes, of course, law that we have in the country. So that is where the confusion comes in. All the same, you have spoken well, we've heard you, and I want to talk to Babatunde, Ademola Babatunde this time around, as one of the member of the parties that was registered. Right. Would you tell Nigerians that your party has the structure, that your party is represented in all parts of the country, that your party has the capacity to win elections or has won elections? Because this is the reality of it all. After all said and done, we know we have a process to follow. But in reality, do you consider your party as a party with national outlook in the first instance?
Okay, thank you very much. Before I respond to that question, I'd like to make some critical statements on what the Honorable Commissioner, the Resident Electoral Commissioner, said earlier. The first thing I would like to say, he talked about some of the parties that have stayed for more than 5 years. And I'd like to also let Nigerians understand the tenets of this whole argument. I don't think that the Honorable Commissioner is aware of the prayers of the political parties that went to court. And I don't also believe that he has read the judgment of the Honorable Justice Chikere. In her ruling, before the judgment, she had already given an interlocutory injunction stating that INEC should stay action. And INEC went ahead and deregistered political parties. Meanwhile, INEC had been served severally, and INEC never joined issue in court. All this have been said in some of your programs on NTA. And I also want to state that after the judgment did not say that INEC, you have the power to deregister political party. The judgment simply says in her ruling, she said that the political parties have not presented evidence enough to justify all their claims. Now, there are parties who also went to court who were registered 2 months before the elections. 23 political parties were registered into the electioneering. And these political parties that were registered, we created structures in all the 34 states, not 36, including FCT, but some had the entire 36, including FCT. Some had 34, 35, like that. Some fielded candidates in the elections, which is the constitutional right of these political parties.
What kind of structures are you talking about?
I'm talking about your executive structures, your party offices across the country. And then, after this election, a party that has not completed the election cycle was deregistered speedily by INEC, even while we are still in court. Now, the question we are asking the court of law is, how can INEC register a political party that is not up to 1 year, and then you come around after you have verified them, subject to the constitutional requirement that you registered them with, and then you verify their offices, you verify them. Some of your correspondents were in our offices during this verification. INEC didn't get back to us, even though we knew that we met all the requirements, because we have a template. They gave us what they wanted, and they ticked all of this, and they took it back to their office. They didn't get back to us. And the Constitution is very clear about the verification exercise. There are penalties that the Constitution has stated clearly that INEC can sanction the political party that does not meet up the standard requirements. Now, this is not in peculiarity to Section 225A on its own. And I must state very clearly that our party, even up to today, has our structures in the local government area of the country. We have our state executives. We met up all the requirements. The same party office that INEC visited before they registered us was the same party they visited after 1 year.
Did you win an election in any part of the country?
The question you are asking is not about just winning an election within 1 year. It's not about just winning an election. The election cycle has not been completed. We can't just be deregistered while we have candidates across the country. You should know that the election position, only one candidate will win it. It does not matter the totality of the number of political parties in Nigeria. What matters most is that we are given the freedom to associate and bring out our own interest. The Constitution under Section 40 is very clear. You should go to an association where your interest will be protected. If the interest of a political party is such that Nigeria should go green and the climate change should be maintained, a party can come up with just building trees across the country.
So to you, it does not matter how many political parties we have in the country?
INEC should structure its policies right and put up structural administrative policies that will enable them to do the right thing and give a clear view of elections that goes on in the country. I must also say this. Section 6 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is very clear. The judicial power is vested on the judiciary, on the court of law. You cannot decide to take laws into your hand and then you do not even appreciate the judicature. The court of law says INEC, they are still doing the same thing. The court of appeal has made a pronouncement. INEC has not obeyed that order.
Okay,
even if you are going to Supreme Court.
Let's put you on hold because we want to quickly conclude this discussion. Dr. Tanko, is multi-party system antithetical to democratic principle?
You know, for a very long time, I have been a proponent of multi-party democratic system. And when you talk about large number, how many are we? We are close to about 200 million people. I kept an example of Benin Republic. Benin Republic is less than how many million? About 9 million people. They have about 100 something political parties in their country. And they are not crying at all because they fashion out the system in which they can be able to have everybody aspiring to any position in the land. What we ought to do, I've made this suggestion now for going forward, is that we and INEC, we must make this clear. The political parties in Nigeria have been very supportive to INEC, you can confirm. Very, very supportive in terms of even when they have problems as regard to finances, as regard to issue of electioneering, when there is a problem in the political parties support INEC to ensure that probably if they want to postpone election based on fact and figure. So we have never, in fact, we are supposed to be partners in this democratic system because without them, we cannot exist. Without us too, they cannot exist. So what we are saying in essence in going forward is that we need to have a kind of a conference where political actors, leaders of political parties, as he's sitting is equivalent to chairman of PDP or chairman of APC. Today they may be there, tomorrow we too may be in that particular position. So, but then, if we want to advance our democracy, we need to sit down and tinker with some of the challenges that we have. If we say because the populists and even Karen is talking about, okay, the numbers is so large. No, it's not. In US, in Britain, there are larger numbers. But they've been able to manage. Some of them agree that, okay, you must win certain percentage so that you can be in the ballot for general election. Or some political parties are being relegated to local government election. But they've never stopped any political party from being registered. So we need to sit down and think, how do we position this electioneering in such a way that everybody is being carried along? We have never done anything like that.
Do you see
in some countries like America you mentioned, some political parties are not of national outlook. Some are based on local government areas. They don't bother what happens at the center, right? And in such case, the structure is manageable. But when every party in Nigeria wants to present a presidential candidate, when you cannot win an election in local government area, so now what should be done? Is it a constitutional matter? Is it a constitutional matter?
That's what I'm saying. There must be an urgent one, a discussion within the political parties and INEC, a discussion with the civil society group who are the most critical people of the political parties. We must have a discussion with them. Then we must have a conference even with the security apparatus, because sometimes we keep on giving so much blame to INEC without looking at some of the components that support elections. For example, now we are facing a Edo election, for example, which I must warn now that because if this situation is not being dealt with right now, there will be more litigation as is coming even in Edo. We have a problem now facing us. There is possibility of violence in Edo. But would you always say that if INEC had an election in Edo and then there's a problem, then we blame it on INEC? No. The security apparatus, can they enforce this particular law? We've been hearing violent speeches. All of these things have not been taken care of. So we need to have a conference with the political parties first. They must give their own positions as regard to what is going on with them, what they are feeling, what their challenges are. Let me give you an example. The NCP, for example, we are one of the oldest political parties. You may ask us, why have we not won election? But we have won election in Ekiti State. We have shown capacity that we can win election. But with even of the situation that we have, these other political parties who are in position have used money to trample upon us. They've used the rule of law because they are in position of power. They've used all kinds of media to make sure that all the other political parties, and none of you, none of us, no matter how good we are, how vocal we are, how credible we are, we present a candidate, nobody will listen to that particular candidate except if he brings a car and Aiki.
But you know that politics is all about funding.
No, we need to change that particular narrative. No, because the problem with us is that we have already given so much power to use of money. How can you go to an election when your opponent is giving 10,000 naira to an electorate, and you have a credible candidate that can help that particular system?
I'm even talking globally. Globally, political associations and parties is all about funding.
Exactly.
And that is why, in fact, if you look at America, for instance, there has been very few American presidents in the past. They were not millionaires. Very few of them, like Obama, who was not really, but he was able to muster, courage, and of course, had the supporters who raised funds for him. So it's all about funding. I'm not saying that you should not be given a chance.
McCain, a little bit popular, he was given a seed money of $45 million. The government gives you money in certain mark. If you want to take more than that, you can go to the public. That was what happened in the case of Obama. Of course, Trump has his own money to use, but there's a yardstick in which certain X amount of money will be given. The last time we gave political party money was 6 million naira. As at that time, people were spending billions of naira as against you. How do we win elections?
Have the political parties shown capacity to meet, apart from the 25% threshold, of vote cast, have they shown capacity to meet other requirements as provided by law?
Well, there are so many other requirements. He mentioned some of them. Presence across the country, spread of the members of the national executive of the committee should have a spread across the state, and having functional offices in FCT and in at least
an updated account.
Yes, that is part of the requirements. But there's also the other important requirement about winning the support of the people. When he talked about, it doesn't mean that you must win a seat. He talks about even percentage. So even at the local government election, you may not have won the chairmanship of a local government, but the number of votes you scored should be at a particular percentage that at least shows that in one local government area in the country, you have 25% of voters who voted in the local government election who support your political party. So you have to look at it, in totality to know whether this political party, like I said, he's mentioned some political parties that just registered a few years ago. But we have also seen political parties that have been there for many more years, and they've had cycles and cycles of election. They've contested, they've not won anything.
All right, let's get perhaps a closing thought from Afam Osiwe. Afam, litigations in Nigerian body polity has become, part of us for so many years now. And even from what Tanko said, we're expecting to have a election, and if what is being envisaged will come through, it does appear that after the election, there will be more litigations and what have you. Now, how would you describe litigations, with respect to what has just happened between INEC and the deregistered political parties? Must we really go to court all the time? In this case, you appreciate the fact that INEC had the powers to do what they did, and the court also supported that. Yet, the registered political parties went to court. I don't know, how do you react to that?
It is the right of a person who feels he's been wronged in a process to go to court. It's better than resorting to self-help. And indeed, there's nothing wrong with that. But I also think it is very imperative that we sanitize our electoral process so that there will be greater confidence reposed in it. That is one of the best ways of reducing resort to the courts in electoral disputes. And I must also say this, that the failure to also follow due process of law also gives rise to litigation. So do not blame the man who has gone to court to challenge an action he considers unconstitutional. Blame the person who has failed to follow the constitutional laid down procedure. And further, let me also say, with respect to this, the Resident Electoral Commissioner kept referring continuously to parties having been in existence for up to 4 or 5 years. Section 225A of the Fourth Alteration was enacted into law in 2018, so cannot make reference to any election that took place before it came into being. We must look at from 2019 general election, and if that section also lists different elections that a political party may have to win a certain percentage, and all those elections have not taken place, won't it be hasty to seek to rely on that section to register political parties? It is actions, impatience, being in a hurry, not doing things the right way that give rise to litigations, not people actually resorting to litigation. If people see that they lose an election fair and square, they will not go to court. It is when they feel that the process has been abused, results have been written, ballots have been stuffed, there has been intimidation of voters, or there has been violence, and people do not have confidence that the declared result reflects the will of the people. That's why people go to court. Apart from those who are sore losers who will go to court just to say, I lost because they rigged me out, or they used the judicial process to win me. They must go to court at all times. But doing things the right way will ensure that these litigations are kept to the barest minimum.
All right. Do we still have time for the tweets?
No, let's quickly just acknowledge all of them. Chris Simeon, Festus Akimboyewa, Dele Jack Solomon, Usman Banukanto, P.A. Oyebanji, Comrade Alangala, Mutana Farouk, Leo Fadeka, Shuaibu, and Muyiwa. We really appreciate your tweets. We're afraid we cannot take them because we have a second conversation on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. But let's quickly appreciate our guest, Obo Efanga. He is INEC's Resident Electoral Commissioner for Rivers State. Thank you very much for coming to give us.
And you're heading to the Supreme Court, isn't it?
Yes.
Exactly.
All right. Mazi Afam Osigwe, former Secretary, Nigeria Bar Association, also joining us for this discussion. Thank you for your perspective. Dr. Yunus Atanko, National Chairman and 2019 Presidential Candidate of the National Conscience Party, one of the registered political parties and the oldest so far. Thank you very much.
By the law now.
Thank you very much for joining me. Ademola Babatunde, National Chairman, Nigeria Community Movement Party. Thank you very much for joining us and also for your very articulated perspective.
Thank you very much.
All right,
so you are hoped to be back again as political parties. That's okay. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. We hope to see you again on another platform. That's very interesting talking to you this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right. And for the second topic for discussion this morning is on Graduate Summer 2020 Symposium. We will tell you what it's all about when we come back after the report.
She cries. She cries in anguish and in pain. She bears the scourge of her grief. She toils in vain for justice and succumbs to silence. He gloats over his malady. Like a beast, he pounces with no remorse. Her cry means nothing. Her pain feeds her shame. Like an orphan, she's left to grieve in solitude. But no more will she cry in vain. Her adversaries will henceforth bear the brunt of their cruelty. Rape is evil. Rape is a plague, a pandemic of monumental consequences. We must unite and kick it out of our society.
Connect with NTA and stand against rape and rapists. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
As a strong immune system increases the chances of victims surviving COVID-19. A corruption-free society creates opportunities for citizens to thrive and prosper. Build your immunity. Stop corruption now. Report all acts of corruption to ICPC on this toll-free number 0800 2255 4272. This message is brought to you by ICPC and NTA.
Welcome back for the second part of our conversation on Good Morning Nigeria today, and the topic will be on Graduate Summer 2020 Symposium. I don't know what this is all about, but I have those in the studio with us who will give us more perspective on what this show is all about. So let me quickly introduce Sharon Eli Esebe, who is a university graduate. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And also Stacy Ojirewe. Did I get your surname correct?
Yes, you did.
Okay, a final year student of what school?
Veritas University.
Okay, Veritas University.
All right, and that name will be from Edo State, isn't it?
Delta State.
Delta State. Oh,
yes.
All right. Now, we also have via Skype to discuss the topic, Chiduru Okan, initiator of Iconic Nigeria. We welcome you to the program. I hope the audio will improve when we return to her, because she might likely take the first question because she's the lead, Claire. And also via Skype, we have Franklin Amo, co-founder and managing partner of Bailey's Emerging Markets. Hello, welcome to the program.
Good morning, sir. Thank you.
We'll start with Chi.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Chiduru, please enlighten us on what this Graduate Summer 2020 Symposium is all about.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry, it was on mute. I was just saying my surname is Ochan, so it's pronounced with an H. The Graduate 2020 Symposium is actually an initiative that was created by Iconic Nigeria. The aim is to provide a brave space for unemployed and underemployed graduates to be able to access and interact with lead career experts from varying sectors and professions. So what we try to do is to activate this brave space once every year. And this year it's going to be holding on the 19th and 20th of August. So that's this Wednesday and Thursday. And for the 19th, we'll be having one-to-one interactive two-way engagements. So there will be a career counseling. There will be university counseling as well, guidance. We've partnered with an organization called University Avenue which is based in Oxford here in the UK. And also we will be having social impact workshops and entrepreneurial labs during this engaging activities in that day. And then on the 20th, we would have the talks, which is much more structured. So we've had keynote speakers that will be representing different sectors, namely agriculture, financial services, arts and media, healthcare, and technology. We also have two very distinguished guests that will be coming on air. That will be Mr. Bismarck Ruwane and Professor Catherine Dogan from South Africa. And during this time, we're trying to use this brief space to engage in a discourse on the challenges of the job markets in Nigeria and the ways that graduates, especially the highly skilled graduates, can navigate through these challenges.
Chi, I would like you to again, give us the content or context of this symposium, and probably what it hopes to, the outcome you hope for it?
Symposium, actually, we try to identify a theme that is relevant to the times. And with the current situation with COVID-19 and most countries going into recession, but at the same time, for a number of years, actually, even since I was born, most graduates or highly skilled, the part of highly skilled labor population always end up at some point emigrating out of Nigeria. So the question then is, if we were to emigrate out of Nigeria, or if we were to stay back in Nigeria, how can we, as part of the labor force, highly skilled labor force, impact the economic growth of Nigeria? So this particular symposium for this year will be tackling that in terms of saying we are part of a labor force. It's highly skilled. We have a direct impact on the economy, and this is a time when most economies are in recession. So what can we do, regardless of where we are or where we reside, to have a positive impact in growing back our economy?
Well, I think it's all encompassing, and it's very interesting coming from the younger generation of Nigerians. A lot, of course, from what she explained, is actually involved in this. And from my understanding, it will go a long way, really, of course, ensuring that our youth contribute to national growth. Thank you so much, Chi. Let's talk to Franklin Amo, co-founder and managing partner of Bailey's Emerging Markets. Well, let's hear from you. How do you contextualize this initiative, and let us know also the gains inherent, in the symposium?
Very much so. Thank you for the question, and thanks for having us here this morning. Mrs. Ochan's initiative and vision for this symposium really resonated with us as an investment firm focused on supporting industrialization of Nigeria and all of Africa as a whole. And I think what this symposium does is make a statement, really, to the key stakeholders in our society to not forget that we can't move forward unless the youth are strengthened, supported, and encouraged. And so many of my colleagues who will be joining as keynote speakers on the symposium will not only offer our thoughts and our experiences and our own sort of ideas of how young people and graduates should navigate this challenging job market, but also be there as a symbol that we have not forgotten those youths in Nigeria. And as Mrs. Ochan has said earlier, we want to make a path and sort of create a roadmap for those who stay in the country to develop the country and to develop the economy of the country. How can they do this, and how can they create a livelihood for themselves and their families? And so we think this is very critical, and we think not only, as Mrs. Ochan has already said, will we deliver sort of very specific clues and direction and ideas, but also really just offer a symbol that we are here, we are encouraging them, that we believe in them, and that we also think that they are critical to the future of this country. Without our youth empowered, we won't be moving forward.
Both of you are joining us from outside the country. So my question will be, are your target, is it gender sensitive? Is it location sensitive?
About graduates in Nigeria. So regardless of where your first degree or second degree or master's or postgraduate studies was done, we are hoping that at some point, even though you're in diaspora, you might want to return to Nigeria. And then for our graduates in Nigeria, with the unemployment rate really increasing every year, we have over 1.7 million of unemployed and underemployed graduates right now in Nigeria. So for us at this point, we're looking at all graduates who might want to work in Nigeria or who might be thinking of, even though they are not living in Nigeria, how can they impact Nigeria? And it's also not gender specific, because we're looking at it's not also age specific in that sense. We're We are not looking at, did you just graduate? As long as you're a graduate and you might actually be looking for a job or you're looking to change position, regardless of that, we're trying to be all inclusive. And yes, we are all out of the country at the moment. But for me personally, we tend to do this while we're in Nigeria. But with the situation going on, we've had to take this virtually. So this is our very first virtual event. In the past years, we've actually done it in Lagos.
Right, thank you. Let's bring in
I want to get just before we bring them, because they would just share their, of course, their motivation for being part of this program. But I'd like to ask again, either Franklin or Chi, to take the question. I'd like to know what actually inspired, these this whole discourse, this whole event, because for me it's quite interesting and laudable.
Okay, I can just quickly take it here, and I think Franklin might also give his own views. But for me personally, in creating this, Iconic Nigeria is created as a platform to support social impact initiatives that are focused on empowering and developing our young Nigerians or Nigerian youth. And personally, it was initially created as a business publication, ranking publication for graduates, but eventually, with close interactions, I started to see that there was a huge gap. Our university systems focus mainly on how the requirements or resources to develop that technical aspect of your, for your studies. And most of the time, the soft skills developments, is kind of ignored, understandably. And I feel like being able to focus on that soft skills development is a key gap in the market that needs to be bridged. Is a systematic change that's required, and that was really what inspired me. So it's not a business, it's not something that is a company or an organization, it's just a platform, an initiative that I personally created, and then I have two other of my colleagues and friends, and we all work in the background to do this with our own personal funds once a year. So it's just our own way of trying to give back and trying to help in the little way we can. But I'm sure Franklin would also have his own, why this also resonated with him to volunteer his time as a keynote speaker.
Yes, thank you for that, Mrs. Ochan. She's right. And, Bayless Emerging Markets is a private equity firm. So we're investors, we're financial investors, and we focus primarily on manufacturing and industry. And, what we've seen is that there is, as she said, a gap between, where the jobs are or may be or are going to be in the future and where our youths are. And it's not that they're not talented. It's not that they don't have the skill sets, but we do see that they need to know that there is a pathway to those jobs, and we need to do what we can as a private sector participant to encourage that we have the best talent available in our job market. And so that's why this was, for us, sort of a no-brainer to be a part of and to support. And we'll be looking for more opportunities to support such initiatives in the future.
Now, let me ask you, Franklin, are you collaborating with any other entity in Nigeria or organization in Nigeria? Because your focus is primarily on Nigerian graduates. Do you have any kind of synergy existing here with other establishments to enable you achieve 100% of what your dream really is?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question, sir. One of the organizations we worked with is the Royal African Young Innovators, which is an initiative of His Imperial Majesty, the Oni of Ife. So that's an organization that we've partnered with, which also looks to find young entrepreneurs, encourage them, support them, find investments for them, and develop their businesses. And as I said, we're looking for increased opportunities, and I think you've seen this in other investment firms. There was a very well-known private equity firm, Platform Capital, that just made a strong investment, I believe, to Lagos Business School, just built them a new facility. And I think all those activities are being driven by the fact that all of us in the private sector are coming to the realization that we won't succeed unless our young people succeed. and have a pathway to success for themselves and their own families.
Right, let's come back here to the two young ladies we have here. And just to add that both of them are graduates. Sharon is a graduate of Liberty University in the United States, while Stacey is a graduate of Veritas University here in Abuja.
I'm in my final year.
Oh, you're in your final year?
Yes.
Okay, of course, she's studying mass communication and all that. And both of you volunteered to be part of this program. Let's start with you, Stacey. Just share your anxieties with us as a graduate, as a final year student, you know, who will probably be thrown into the labor market.
Yes, I'm pretty anxious and worried because over the last few years, I know a lot of graduates. I have a lot of friends that have graduated, and like very few, maybe one or two, have been able to like get jobs. And you know, I have a business that I've been doing like in school, and now that I'm graduating, or now that I'm almost graduating, I'm really worried. I'm trying to like invest more in my business so I can do better by when I'm graduating, so I don't have to depend on the job market.
What business are you doing in school?
I make beads and I have a skincare line as well. So I'm just trying to do better. I'm really being hard on myself right now. I'm trying to invest more time, more money on my business so that by the time I'm graduating, it's bringing profit that I don't have to depend on the job market.
How did you get to know the, you know, this initiative?
It was a friend of mine. She called me and she was like, oh, there's this NGO. Do I want to? And I went through the document that was sent to me about what they're about, and I was really interested. And it seems like something I can really relate to because I am super anxious again about graduating and entering the job market. So I was like, yes, I'll do it.
Yes, let's bring in Sharon here. You know, let's share our own experience.
Well, like she said, I just got back into the country last year to currently do my NYSC. And as a graduate, you come into this country and you're wondering what are the next steps that you can take now that you're back home. Because for me, my goal was to get the information I needed, come back here and put it into effect. But then you come into an environment where do you begin? How do you even start? So Stacey here mentioned she's starting a business, but she's anxious about how to go about it, you know, funds, and that brought me to thinking, what really is the problem? You know, we as youth, we as graduates, how do we access, how do we come to a stage where we can access what we need to get to the next step? So, you know, I've been thinking a lot about it, and I figured out everybody knows that in a country, the private sector is what really drives the economy, you know. So I believe in order for us to move forward, one of the solutions that I've thought about is, you know, the government working with the financial institute to bring the loan rate back to 1 digit. You see, when it comes back to 1 digit...
For graduates?
Yes, for everybody. It comes back to 1 digit. It gives the opportunity for people to be able to access funds, to create businesses, to move forward.
That's very ambitious.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. We have to think outside the box.
What kind of business are you inclined to?
Well, it could be anything. I just go for whatever opportunity I see fit, and I put my hands into it. But if they create this, you know, policy that brings back the loans to 1 digit, it creates an opportunity for everyone to access it. So Stacey here would not be anxious. She would know that when she graduates, there's an opportunity for her to access funds, for her to further her business.
So what is it about this initiative that resonates with you?
I have a passion for my country. I have a passion for the youth. We have so much opportunity. We have so many ideas and things that we could do to make this country better. But the access to these resources and tools is not there for us. So that's why I'm passionate, and this resonated well with me because this is something that we need to do. We're the future of this country. So we needed a platform like this that would help us, you know, push the agenda and make our country great.
All right. Well, you can't get back to Skype right now because I wanted to ask Chiduru to make an assessment of the initiative so far. She's been on this for a while, so we'd like to find out whether she's making progress or not. But if you can't get to Skype, let's remain here in Abuja, and let me bring in again Stacy here. Yeah, Stacy, you are business inclined. Being in school and doing one or two things to help yourself is very, very understandable. Now, what aspect of this initiative would you like to key into?
The lessons, the entrepreneurship lessons that would help me be able to do better in my business, be able to go out there and get even more sources of income, because that's what I look forward to. I actually look forward to keying into different business aspects. So I really look forward to learning from them, going to these workshops and learning about entrepreneurship and just having my own business.
All right, if I get to Skype, Chiduru, what's your own assessment, of your activities so far since this initiative came on stream? Are you making progress? Are Nigerian youth showing interest in what you're doing? If yes, do a general assessment of the initiative.
When we started making it much more formal and getting more people involved, and NTA also helped us to, reach more people, we've been able to get graduates from across the country joining us and registering. So, for example, in 2008, we were able to have at least 5 of those graduates on the spot during the events get jobs, and further 5 of them also had trainings and mentoring, follow-up trainings and mentoring after the events. So there's been that very great impact. A lot of them have said how just that opportunity to speak to someone for 20 minutes was life-transforming or life-changing for them. And that's something that some of us might take for granted, having that support to guide us, those role models that might be silent in our lives, but are there to assist us. And you'll find that most of these graduates don't have, most of our friends don't have such support. So being able to have that one-to-one career guidance or mentoring was something that really resonated well with them, and they've really responded very well. For this particular event, there's been a lot of interest. There's been ongoing registration, and it's just increasing. We also even have the international community looking into it. We have one of the New York best-selling authors who would actually be a keynote speaker in the media sector, who has volunteered his time just, to try and support this initiative. And that's really resonated well with people. There's lots of great speakers as well coming in from various parts of the world, to be there. And so for graduates out there who are listening, there's still time. The event is virtual, so that's the very good thing about this. There are no constraints to the number of people that can attend, as if it would have been if it was physical. So if you're interested, just go to our website, which is www.iconicnigeria.com. Just look for the tab for graduates, and the registration is there. And it's a free event. It's going to cost you nothing, apart from obviously trying to get some data, which we're also trying to look into on ways to compensate for that. But apart from that, it's a free event, and you have a lot to learn with it over the 2 days.
All right, okay.
Chiduru or Chan, initiator of Iconic Nigeria, would like to appreciate you joining us via Skype. We'd also like to appreciate Franklin Amu, co-founder and managing partner of Bailey's Emerging Markets. Both of you, thank you, and do have a wonderful day. Let me also appreciate the 2 very beautiful ladies here with me, very enterprising, and I just wish both of you the best of luck. Stacy Ojirewe. Yes. Final year student of Mass Communication, Veritas University, thank you. And of course, Sharon Ele Asebe, University graduate of Liberty University from the United States. Thank you, and welcome back home.
Thank you for having me.
How are you going to stay?
Let's join our sports desk now for some sports stories.